gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
We are very excited because we have a very special guest today.
Yes, we do.
A special guest, so special that she's actually done this twice. We had some audio difficulties with her, and she was willing to come back and chat with us again, which we're just thrilled by. So we would like to welcome Dr. Carla Fowler, or Carla, as she likes to be known.
Just Carla.
Managing Director of THAXA. Carla, welcome.
Yay.
Hi, Gail. Hi, Bruce. It's so great to be back. I mean, as we were saying, I enjoyed our first conversation so much. I am back for more. We're going to talk about lots of great things today. And we'll probably go to some new territory. So.
I love that.
Right.
And I mean,
that's the goal.
I will tell you, the last time we chatted, we got off the phone with you or got off the recording, and the two of us looked at each other and said, we love her.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's already a given. That's already a given. And THAXA is executive coaching, which I love. So I'd love to hear kind of the seminal stages of how you got into that, how it came to be. And a little bit about your background, so that even though we know a little bit about it, our listeners are not going to know anything. So let's tell them, let's give them their money's worth.
Absolutely happy to. Well, one thing that's always important to point out is, like, I didn't set out in my life and career to do executive coaching, but I'm so happy that I ended up here. It turns out my path was very linear for a little bit, and then I made a really big pivot about 12 years ago. So I've had THAXA for 12 years, and where I came from was actually very much like a sciencey, like biology, medical background. So I got my MD and my PhD. It was like an academic scientist training program to basically put doctors out there who understand both like the human parts, like the standards of care, how to care for illnesses and how to care for people, but also really understood and could totally nerd out on the science part of it. And that probably tells you a little bit about me to begin with, which is, number one, I was like, that program sounds awesome, even though that's going to take about a decade. And number two, I just really love interdisciplinary thinking. And I think I always saw the power of being able to view something from multiple angles. And so coming into THAXA in executive coaching, I think one of the ways that happened was just this realization that I had always been seeking out a lot of sort of high performance environments, like throughout my growing up. So athletically, I did a number of endurance sports. Like I did crew in college. I was a runner, but also academically, like getting into medical school, going through those hoops is not easy. And I loved it, not because it was comfortable. In fact, I spent a lot of time stressed and like, okay, the bar is high. I need to pass. But I always was really interested in how much I learned about myself, how much I learned about other people, and all the observation I got to do of how people approach these kinds of challenging arenas successfully. And so fast forward now, I'm in medicine. I'm learning a lot about like how to care for people when they're making like high stakes decisions, learning a lot about the medicine too. But I think one of the realizations I came to was I actually loved sort of the meta level, like thinking about more the human piece of it, the decision-making, the leadership. How do leaders do a good job in these high stakes environments? How do teams like function well? And so I had to make a decision, like, was what I really loved, like, the biology and the medical part of it, or did I actually want a different kind of practice? And it was going to be a practice about performance and mindsets and leadership. And could I bring the science to that practice? So again, using that background, but just assembling it in a new way. And so everyone knows the punchline here. I decided yes, and made a big pivot, which again is not a common thing to do, to leave medicine and to go into an entirely different field. But that is how I got started with THAXA and got designing a methodology around performance science. And so that is how we get here today.
Wow. Oh my gosh. I love that so much. And of course, anytime anyone says that they bring science into what they do and, and data or the brain, we get really excited about it because we have that
fellow nerd
in common. So I do love that.
Yes.
Love that.
So I would love to hear Carla, if you can't, I mean, I can't even imagine how difficult that decision was to make, right? You've invested all of this time, you've invested all of this effort.
Money.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Perhaps
money.
Perhaps a few dollars in there as
or
well.
Debt.
and then you're sitting on the couch, or you're looking out over the mountains, or you're out biking or running, and you suddenly go, hey, you know what? I walk us through the actual decision. Like, how did you get there?
Yeah. I mean, this is a really great question. And one piece I can answer right off the bat is, and this is something I talk with my clients a lot about, is when there are ways to create optionality for yourself, like that's often a great thing to do. And so for me, one of the things about these programs, because it took me 9 years to finish, as opposed to the typical like 4 years of medical school, it was actually a funded program. So I was getting paid. It was sort of like having a job. I mean, it was my job for my 20s. It was like being a grad student for 9 years. And it doesn't pay super well. but I mean, you think about all the value you're getting and all the training I got because I was willing to work an extra 5 years and graduate 5 years behind the people I entered with. So, so in that sense, I was really free to consider, well, like there wasn't that big sunk cost, which I think is a challenge for many medical professionals if they are saying, hey, I don't think this is right for me. Secondly, I mean, the decision about what is the right thing to do, I don't know if this is just how I'm built, but I have always been a person who pursued stuff I was interested in and often could kind of tell, and I would go like full into it, and then could often kind of tell when it was like, oh, it's time to move on. And I did this with sports. Like I rode crew in college, but then at about 3 years, I was like, yeah, I think I'm ready for something different. And so I stopped and I started playing ultimate Frisbee. And then I did that for 10 years and like won a couple of national championships, like won a world championship. Like
she says,
it
was a Tuesday.
Whatever. It was
a Tuesday.
Whatever.
Well, but this, I don't know, the ability to say, or at least just feel very strongly, there was something not right about it. There were some things about that I didn't feel like my full set of skills and interests were not being engaged. Like that certainly I was doing well, but I could tell like, here's what it will take to be successful here. And here's about the range of what I have to offer that will be used. Here's the game. Like I could see the game. And I just knew that like that wasn't going to build the multi-channel life for me that I wanted. Like, as you can tell, I love sports. I love being outside. Like I'm married. I have a husband, love spending time with him. And I love working, and I love working ambitiously. But part of what allows me to build the life I wanted was to have some more control over my time and to be able to work super potently. And also to work on something that I just was innately curious about versus saying, oh yeah, like I know all of this stuff and I can execute on it, but I'm not thinking about it all the time. And I realized I was thinking about performance all the time in my head, like how this thing could be better, how like these human interactions could go better. And so I guess it was not easy. In fact, it was super inconvenient, but I was like, I can't not see it. Like once I saw it, I was like,
I can't not see it.
I love the fact that you use the term inconvenient. Like,
I know.
You know what? I just stepped over this and it was inconvenient.
Yes,
That's very, very funny. I can appreciate the bravery, honestly, Carla, that it takes to do that. You know, as entrepreneurs, right? We're all entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
That, we're willing something into existence when we do that, right? It didn't exist and now we said it exists. And that takes a certain amount of chutzpah, bravery, whatever you want to, grit, whatever you want to call it, to just jump over that and take that first step, 100%. Which it sounds like, from a performance standpoint, your brain was already trained to do that from the sports you played and the commitment that you generally go through your life with.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm incredibly impressed by that. And here's what I'd like to know. Like, here's what's just in my brain in terms of, I want to know this about you, Carla, is what leader is your leader? Like, what is the leader that's out there that you're like, yes, what I have created is the path for you, the journey for you, the tools for you. Who is that? What What are they like? Tell us, give us that persona so we have an understanding of kind of who to send your way, because I can tell you already, I'm certain that it's a very large pool. And also, I'd love to hear it from your lips.
Yeah, well, thanks for asking, Gail. It's funny. It's certainly, I work with leaders who are typically like at a level of responsibility and autonomy where they are the front row for leading what happens next, right? Like determining the plan, setting some strategic direction. And that isn't always for a company. I mean, sometimes it is, but sometimes it's also like there's a function that they're leading or department. But often the thing that feels stronger to me when I describe my clients, people who like my methodology, is they are people who are curious about like, what are the tools and ways we can approach something that are repeatable, that they could share with their teams, that give us lots of angles of approach or problem solving when we're facing all the different kinds of uncertainty and challenges that come up in business or leading an org. And so one of the things I love about performance science is it's all about like tools. And I can tell you sort of how I break it down, but no tool, you don't have to use the hammer all the time. And I think often when we see performance talked about, it's like very much binary or like, well, this is the thing you have to do. And I talk with people who are like, oh yeah, Carla, I heard it's all about mindset. I'm like, oh yeah, mindset is a very powerful, that is one bucket of performance. Like what is our psychology? How are we framing something? That is one wonderful angle of approach. And for some people, when we tap into that, it like flips a switch. And it's amazing for them. But I like to expand it and say, at different times, we might need a different approach. And so the other buckets that I think about in performance, if we're just going to simplify it, and I love simplifying things because I think there's like so much stuff out there. And when you're a busy leader, like you need a simple framework, not a you don't need to go read an academic paper. And so I often think about the other buckets as you can have a strategic approach to something, which is where you really focus and ask yourself, what is it I really want to accomplish here? What's the most important objective out of all of this? And what do I actually think are the most important levers or areas of investment that are going to influence that? Like, we're not going to do everything, like accepting that right at the start and say, so our power comes in how we select what we're going to do. So like strategy is an approach to solve a problem. Execution is a second bucket, right? Mm-hmm. That sometimes we need to help someone think through, like, are there some better ways or more effective or efficient ways to go about something? And so that's an angle of approach. The last angle of approach, we already talked about mindset, but is I think a lot about our biology. So we know that our decision-making and a lot of our energy or our motivation are influenced by things like how much sleep did we get? You know, how many stress hormones are kind of flowing through our body versus are we able to have some techniques to sort of calm ourselves or sort of come down? Like we'll always have moments of stress. That's pretty normal. And it's actually can be good for us. But how are we managing our biology over time to help us perform at our best? And so I find that leaders who really like working with me and like my approach want the freedom that comes from saying, I have a toolkit. And so I have a lot of different ways to approach things and not to feel like, there's just one way I need to go. And so, that's how I think about it.
That's great.
Yeah, I love that. So help me. I think you were talking about just the different pieces of that methodology. You have strategy, you have execution, you have mindset. Is that a part of it? Mm-hmm. And then the final one is biology, right?
Yeah.
All right. So MES.
You're working very hard.
Where did I go? I feel like there's an acronym in there. Do you use an acronym for it?
I don't, but I do feel like, Gail, I think you came up with an acronym last time.
I feel like I did. Strategy, execution, mindset. That's SEM, and then biology, right?
SEMBA.
It's MEBS.
MEBS.
I've got some MEBS for you.
It's BMES.
It's BMES.
Yeah, that's
right. I like that too.
We'll keep workshopping.
I so like that, and I love how you said, just a minute. I think he has something to say. I love the thing you said about your approach to the leader is just, to me, it sounds so holistic as opposed to like, let me just give you this toolbox with the one hammer in it and good luck.
Yeah,
you
that's
know,
right.
I know it works. It works for everyone.
It can break a lot of stuff.
Right. As opposed to this idea of like, you are this very complex and diverse human. And there's lots of approaches that can accomplish what it is you're seeking as a leader. And so I really love that. That's what I wanted to say before I ask my next question. Before you ask your next question.
Yeah, we have hand signals that are
You
off camera.
can't see them.
Yeah, that's right.
I go like this and this when it's short. Like I want to say something short before you talk.
And I do this. You're talking too much. He goes like
this when I'm talking too much.
Oh my gosh.
And I do this when he's speaking too quickly.
Yeah.
Like we have a whole language underneath the table here.
That's right.
Okay. This is amazing. I feel like you guys need to do a video clip on your socials to just like show the referee signals, right?
We
like
might need to. Time out.
Oh,
No.
That's right. What
me.
What are you doing?
Me.
So
that was totally a foul. That was totally a foul.
No, wait. In fact, I need to learn some of those football, maybe some football.
Signals.
Yeah, like whatever, encroachment.
Yeah, wow.
I don't know. My gosh. I don't know what they are.
I think that's
clearly I don't know what they are.
It's just like a lion pouncing. I don't think that's encroachment. So, Carla, my question for you. I'm gonna give you a chance to nerd out a little bit because I know with your medical background, with your biology background, and your research background, that you are likely reading a lot of great stuff right now. Ooh. And I'm curious from a performance science standpoint, what you might have read recently that you go that just fits that brain, that just suddenly goes, there's a piece of the puzzle from fMRI or from social science research or something that you just go
behavioral.
Here's something really important.
Love that. Good question.
Oh, this is such a good question, and there's two different things I think about. One is about the importance of visibility and the network to our performance. So this is one. There is a great book, and the author is Laszlo Barabasi, and the book's called The Formula. But he's a social science researcher, wanted to set out to research success, essentially. And one of the interesting principles that comes to this is the idea that there are the results you're producing as a leader, like in your work. And that might be like, what are your sales numbers, or, what was the impact of the program you developed that you're rolling out. But that is one piece. And the easier or the more measurable those results are, the more closely that's related to your success. So a great example of this is like when you are, let's say, a track runner. You're a sprinter. You do the 100-meter dash. It is so easy to measure who won that essentially, if you're the fastest, like your success is very aligned with that.
Sure. Right.
But in business and leadership, so many things are more murky and harder to measure. And in those scenarios, it matters both what your results are, but also how visible and how many people know about your results. And so there's this whole network component to things. And I work with a number of people, and I hear from a number of people that I just speak with who are working really hard, like diligently after those results. And that is wonderful. And the work ethic is there and their quality standards are there. But there's this whole piece that we sometimes miss, which is we think people are just going to see what we're doing. And so one piece of advice that I thought was really interesting from this is to say, we always need to think about how are we helping other people know what we are capable of, what is the value we are producing, like for our company, for our teams, and that we also have to think about that the results are not always enough. And it's not actually difficult to do, but it does just take some time and attention, and we have to value that piece too. And so I thought that was very interesting. The book is called The Formula, and it was really interesting to hear how he was trying to separate situations in which, the results just stand for themselves, but he would find like two different people who basically had the same historic background and had achieved essentially the same results. And one person was totally famous and the other person was like, did not get the Nobel Prize, like, and was doing something totally different at this point in time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
That's a little piece of science that, again, many people
Yeah.
don't know about, but I think is pretty interesting.
I actually really love that.
I can appreciate that. It is all based in that whole social relationship piece, right? If you're in a cave and you're alone and you're doing something and you invent, I don't know, let's say the car, and nobody knows about it, how great is that car, right? As opposed to the people outside the cave who invented the wheel. And wow, was that a huge invention because everybody could see it and see its value. I can really appreciate how, in my own personal experience, I've seen people rise to senior leadership levels because they're good at the management of helping people understand the value that they bring.
Absolutely.
Maybe not necessarily arrogantly, not necessarily,
exactly.
with that. It's really
There's an
more
artful way to do it that doesn't have to feel like yuck. I mean, we've all been there where we're listening to someone talk and we're like, oh.
Yeah. Look how great I am. Like, check me out.
That's okay. Right. So as we are kind of wrapping our conversation up, one of the ways, as you know, that we like to end our conversations is we ask our guests, what is the best piece of advice you have ever been given? Mm-hmm. And then we sometimes get folks to answer this other half of the question and sometimes not. And why were you given it? Why do you think you were given it? Why were you given it? Both kind of together.
Yeah. So I think the best advice, again, I'm going to give a different answer this time. So I've gotten fortunate to get lots of great advice from people. And I will answer the second part of the question. So my PhD mentor was a brilliant scientist, in cancer immunotherapy, super smart. And I remember I would walk into his office and he was pretty hands off, which meant I did a lot of sort of figuring out the uncertainty of like how you learn to be a scientist in the lab. And, but I would come in and I would have this plan and I would say, okay, Phil, I'm going to do this experiment. I'm going to do this experiment. And he'd be like, he would stop me pretty immediately and say, why would you do that? And to be clear, it was not a rhetorical question. He actually wanted to understand, no, but why would you do that experiment? What is it you hope to learn? What is it that would contribute to the field? And why would that be important? And so what the advice essentially was that doing science isn't just sort of looking ahead and being like, oh, well, I see this thing I could do. I see this thing I could do. He was really saying, listen, like there are any number of things you could do, but everything costs money and it costs your time. And so you really want to be thinking and focused on what's actually going to be potent and move you forward, move your knowledge forward. And this is something I talk to my clients about all the time because it's exactly the same in business, right? You have to orient your team towards where their actions and energy would be most potent. And so this question of asking yourself this all the time to make sure that you're never thinking, I'm just going to do it all. But instead you're saying, all of my power comes from how I am selective about what are the right questions to ask, what are the right things to be pursuing, even what are the, what's a risk worth pursuing, right? You never know how things are going to turn out, but you can ask yourself the question. And the reason I got that advice, and it was very good advice, is, or at least why I think I got the advice, is I actually was a very hard worker. I was very good at coming up with stuff to do and executing that stuff. So I don't think anyone was worried about like my productivity. But I think something that can get really lost in there and often can lead to burnout is like that just looking as far as like what you could do as opposed to asking yourself like, is that really worthwhile? And spending some time thinking about that. And I have a bias for action and I love my bias for action. It has served me very well. But with that advice, a bias for action becomes very powerful because the downside of always getting into action is you can end up wasting a lot of energy. So I think that's why I got that advice.
Oh,
Yes,
that's great.
I love that.
It's that debate between busy work
being busy
and meaningful work, right?
Yeah,
And understanding that both have value, both will get things done. It's just, like you said, with limited resources, what are the things that really should get done?
Also, I think of leaders all the time needing that kind of reminder, especially if they're they're founders or co-founders, et cetera. So I love that so much. So what is the best way to get a hold of you if our listeners would like to do so?
Two great places to find me. One is on LinkedIn. And so feel free to follow along. I'm always posting conversations I have with great people like you at Bruce and Gail. And so if you're interested in performance science or want to get in touch, feel free to shoot me a message or a connect. And then my website is also a great place to go. And that is at THAXA.com, THAXA. And I have a great FAQ. You can also message me through the site. So that's another way. But I also have a media page that has a lot of conversations that I've had on it. So if you just want to sort of like nerd out and listen in, that's another good spot.
That's awesome. Well, Carla Fowler.
Yes.
Doctor. She's a doctor.
She's a doctor.
Dr.
I would just call her
Fowler.
Dr. Carla.
That's
Dr. Carla.
That's right.
Yes.
Managing director of THAXA. It has been an absolute pleasure again.
Yes.
Having a conversation with you. So thank you so much for joining us.
Fantastic. We love your energy.
Likewise.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks.